Hey, happy Friday. I'm not wearing my Fry shirt, I just realized. But it is Friday and we are here to sew. And I'm gonna turn the music down a little. It's a little loud. There we go. Anyway, hello everybody and welcome. I am Tori, also known as GirlyGrrlStyle, and today's video is going to be a sewing tutorial. I decided to go live today. I've been going live on TikTok all the time, showing how to make this one particular item that I'm really excited about. And I decided today, because I had a number of requests to go live on YouTube, that I would jump back into the swing of things with another YouTube Live. Now, YouTube Live is a little different. I had to remember everything is landscape instead of, straight up and down. You can't play music that is copywritten, so there are a few things that I forgot about. But anyway, let's dive into the project. So we are going to be making, my nose is running, we are going to be making a Japanese knot bag. So Japanese knot tote bag. They are really cute styles. In fact, let me show you. This is the style. This is one that I kind of messed up, right? The reason I say that it's messed up, not because the design is wrong, but because the poor little llama's head is cut off. But this is a really good indication of what we're actually going to be making. So this style right here has one little strap longer than the other, and this is a wristlet style. So you just wear it like this, and it's big enough to fit your cell phone. It's big enough to fit your ID. It actually holds a lot in this little tiny bag. So this is what we're going to be making together. Now you can do some different variations on this, and one of the things that I like to do is put little clips on there. These are the clips that I had, and they're heavy duty. I mean, it makes this little bag really heavy, so I would recommend getting smaller clips. Of course, I had one out to show you, and there it is. So I would recommend getting actually little smaller clips like this to go on these bags, because they are such a smaller size, and we don't want them getting too overpowered. So like this, a little heavy, it'll do the job, but this is what I have gone to at this point. And I realize that's in the wrong spot. So let's talk about these little bags and how easy they are to make. First of all, you don't have to have a pattern. Now, I created a pattern that I sell over on Etsy in multiple sizes, because for me, I did a few different prototypes, didn't quite turn out the way I wanted, and then I found the one that actually worked for me. So on Etsy, I have like the little mini, and the little mini style, you can actually make, look how, okay, I'm sorry, I love anything that's tiny. And this is one of my favorites. This one is for me, and it's like an ear pod holder, so you can put your ear pods in here. And then the one that we're gonna be making is actually this size right here. It's the medium size. But if you don't have a pattern and you don't want to purchase a pattern on Etsy, if you just kind of cut out pieces in this shape, you should be good. So let's begin with our first step. And by the way, hello everybody and welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, hello, hello. Let's go on to step number one. So the first step when you are making the knot bag is to cut out the pieces, and you will need 4 pieces. So you need 2 pieces for lining and 2 pieces for the outer bag. With this bag, I actually have a few different bags in various stages, so I can show you what those pieces look like without having you wait for me to do like the tedious, well, we'll do some tedious because some work has to be done. But for example, step 1, you have your pattern pieces right here, and then you're going to pin them, or not pin, you can use clips if you want, but you're gonna put right sides together. So right sides together, that's how you initially put them. With the pattern pieces, I actually have notches. This is going to be where you sew to. It also helps align them. But that's the first thing you need to do, is put right sides together. So my question to everybody out there is, how many of you are sewists? How many of you have made this type of bag in the past? Again, it's a really quick project. You bought the pattern last night. Awesome, Karen, thank you so much. I know I have a 5-minute tutorial video. It's kind of walks through the pieces, but if if you have any questions on any of the steps or anything like that, just let me know. That's the best part about being live, right? Is does it? You get to answer all those questions in real time. Okay, so where was I going with that? This is a quick bag that can take about 30 minutes to 60 minutes, depending on how fancy you get with it. I will say I have gotten it down to probably less than 30 minutes, but I'm also using my Cricut to cut out my pattern pieces, which saves a lot of time, except when my Cricut eats my mat, but that's just, you know, neither here nor there. Now, I do need to point out to everybody a new purchase that came today that I'm really excited about, because I've been using pins forever. I love pins. These are flower head pins. They're flat. I love having my custom, you know, pin holder. Love it. But I broke down and got little mini clips. And let me tell you, so far I've used them today just for like 15 minutes, and I am absolutely a convert. So love those. Okay, so first step, make sure you put your right sides together before you do anything else. Then what you're gonna do for the next step is you're actually, once you put them together, the right sides together, you are going to stitch, and yes, I do have my steps on here just to make sure I don't mess up. You are going to stitch across the top of both straps, and then from notch to notch. So that's gonna be that next step. And you're gonna do that. So we'll say this is your lining piece. This is actually a bag I'm working on for Kelly. So Kelly will be getting this bag going out in the mail tomorrow, which is exciting. This one is the lining. So we have right sides together, already stitched at the top, and then from seam to seam. And then the outer piece, you also are going to do the same thing. So for each bag, you should end up at this point with 2 full pieces, or 2 pieces like this. We will eventually turn them right side out. Down here, okay. Then the next thing we're gonna do, and don't worry, we are gonna get into sewing. I just wanna do this pre-work first just to show you these steps, and then I'll get into showing you what that's actually gonna look like. So the next step, which is very important, is going to be to clip your corners, or clip your curves, excuse me. So you do wanna clip all the way around, and what that's gonna do is when you turn it right side out, it'll actually give you a nice clean line, a nice clean little curve, and that's what we're looking for. So not only do you wanna clip the curves here, but then you also want to trim off the extra fabric. So make it as smooth as possible. That's gonna be really, really helpful. Now here is a tip. Now I'm gonna move this down here so I can start showing you some actual sewing and some tips. So before we actually go on to the next step, I recommend pressing the outer corners of your strap before you put the pieces inside of each other to turn it right side out. So making sure, okay, great question. I'm gonna answer that because I also had the same thought. So making sure that you press these out on the outside here, and I just go from notch, just from the notches up to the top, and then I just press that here, and then I do the same thing on the other side, just turning under and then pressing all the way down. And that's gonna become very, very helpful when we get later on. Now, I tried pinking shears. In fact, that is a really great question. Let's see, I've already done that one. Finding a piece that I haven't done it to. So I tried it, and honestly, I don't think it made a big enough difference to actually work. So here, I have my pinking shears here. I mean, you have to get really close to those stitches. So it may work, because then you have 2 for 1. I mean, I guess it could work. It could. We'll see. So that's a really great suggestion. Thank you for sharing that. When I did it, I don't know what it was. I think that I was doing it late at night or something, and I was afraid I was going to cut through the little thread, but yeah, that could totally work. So if you have pinking shears, go for it. I always forget about pinking shears. Oh, what am I running into? The wall. Okay, so that was that little piece here. Now let's get into some actual sewing. Let's do a little bit of our sewing work. So these are the 2 pieces that I am going to be working with. This is a bag I'm actually making for Kathy. So this is gonna be for Kathy and her daughter Nora. And it's another one of the llama style, which this llama fabric is just so cute. I've already done all of the steps. I've already trimmed off the excess. I've pressed the edges on both, stitched at the top, and now we're ready to start the combining process and actually making the bag. So I'm gonna take my outer fabric, and it doesn't really matter. I'll say I typically just use my outer fabric first because I'm gonna turn it right side out. So actually I would say I recommend turning your outer fabric right side out at this point. And there is a reason for it. So once we turn that right side out, the reason is we are going to press it. You do not have to press the lining. That's not that important because we're not going to make this a reversible style. You can, if you wanted to make this a reversible, let's say you wanted to be able to have like the really pretty fabric flipped out, you can certainly do that. But since I'm adding hooks to mine, they're no longer reversible. But if that's the case, I would press both of them. So right now I'm just going to press all the way. Come on. There we go. Make sure we can see. There we go. So I'm just going to press this open. So then that way, when it's done, we don't have to, it's a little bit easier. I know, don't cut the llama head off. Oh my gosh. I think I had another, is this the one? Yeah, I did it again on this one. And then I did another piece capturing the llama faces. So, yeah. You know, whenever you have patterned or fabric with prints, you really have to be mindful at all times. So one little tip that I recommend when you are pressing, this is just something that I've done since I was little and it works really well. Always using your fingers to kind of separate so then you get a nice crisp seam when you press. If I were just to press over this, you'd find buckles on there. So just using your fingers and kind of spreading it out like that. In the pressing pieces, those are always the monotonous pieces, but definitely necessary. Okay, now we have, this is our outer. Turn this down a little. So this is our outer piece, and this was the lining piece. We are going to place the outer part of the bag inside of our lining, and we want to put it the same way. So in this case, we have the long strap over here on the left side. We want the long strap to be on the left side for the lining as well. So we're just going to place this right inside. And essentially what you are doing is putting right sides together. So that's what we're doing, getting those right sides together. Back up a little so we can see this a little bit better. Okay. Now I'm going to use my brand new clips, and what we're going to do is line up the neck or the neck hole here, or the neckline of the two pieces, and then clip or pin, whichever you choose, all the way around. Now everything should align properly, so you shouldn't have any extra fabric at the neckline because the two pattern pieces should be the exact same size. Oh yeah, these pins work so much better, or these clips work so much better than pins. So now what we're left with is we have our neckline has been clipped all the way together, and we're gonna go to the sewing machine and sew all the way around. You're not gonna leave an opening or anything. You're just gonna back stitch at the beginning and the end, and you're gonna use about a 1/4 inch stitch. Where's the sewing machine? Here we go. Now, what do you all use? Do you use pins or do you use clips? Because I've been using pins since, you know, I was a little girl. Never thought I would convert, and then it only took me about 5 minutes of using these today, and already I'm like, oh, how nice is that? Plus, it doesn't pierce the fabric, which I really, really appreciate. Now, the fabric choices that I recommend, you could just use regular cotton. For the lining, I am using just one regular cotton. I'm trying to use like fabric scraps I have, or thrifted fabric that I already have. I'm not going out and buying anything new for these projects. For the outer, a thicker fabric works really, really well. So I have a lot of like outdoor fabric, upholstery fabric that I've picked up at the thrift stores that work really, really well to give you a little bit more heft to the bag. But if you do use just regular cotton, I would recommend adding an interfacing. All right, so we have just sewn the neck. Make sure I did that right. There we go. Just sewn the neckline, like I said, about 1/4 inch all the way around, and we're going to clip the curves once again. I get this question a lot: is it necessary to clip curves? And the answer is yes. Always yes, it is. And the reason for that is right now, because you have curves, this is pretty much as flat as it's going to get. Right? But we want it to be able to have some movement. So then that way, as I mentioned before, when we turn it right side out, we're gonna get a nice curve here. So all you have to do is take your scissors and clip around the curved area. You don't have to go all the way around, just where the curves are. But we're gonna do that here, and then we're also gonna do that here and here. So you will do that a few places on front and back. And go as close as you can to the threads. Just be very careful. Don't cut those threads. Karen, you use both. Okay, yeah, I did a little quick poll on TikTok, and it sounds like a lot of people do use both. It just depends on what the project is. So I can see that. And then again here, see how it lays a lot flatter. That's how when it turns inside out, it's going to give a nice little curve there. You can also cut out triangles. So you may see in certain, you know, books and instructions, they'll have you clip it. That works well as well, especially if you have really thick fabric and you want to remove some of that bulk. I think that's a great idea. There's not too much bulk with this, so it's not absolutely necessary. Clip there, and one last clip over here. But the great news with this is if you turn it right side out and realize that it's not laying the way you want it to, you can go back and clip off extra fabric, because we're not sealing it or anything yet. Okay, now At this point, what we're gonna do is turn it right side out. And we're gonna do that with this long side over here. It's just easier that way. And you're going to put your hand in. You'll see that both fabrics are gonna be here, and then you're just going to take it and then turn it right side out. So kind of turn it inside, one inside the other. And this is where you're gonna see that lining is now showing. And then you're gonna tuck the lining inside the bag. You know, Karen, so Karen's asking thoughts on putting the turn opening on the very bottom instead of in the handle area. I have been thinking about that, and in my brain, I was trying to decide if it would make sense to do that. For me, I like how clean it is on the bottom right here, and because I don't do a top stitch or anything, so for me that doesn't quite work, but it is something to definitely think about. Again, thinking about ease of use, because this is a little challenging, right? Because here we are going to end up with having to sew this side and this side closed, but I found for me and for my aesthetic choice, I like to have it there. But I think always think about those things. Now, once we get this right side out, we are going to go back to, guess what? Pressing. Pressing, pressing, always pressing. I am excited though. I just ordered a new press board mat. What do you call this? Heat press mat. Because this one has a hole in it. Somehow I used it so rigorously because I ironed so often that I made a hole in it. So I just bought a new one today. It is not Cricut brand. I'm not a loyalist to Cricut, except for this little mini iron. I love this. Now, one other thing that I'm doing intentionally, and I want to point out, so the lining is really pretty. It's this rainbow lining, and I do want it to show a little bit. So when you're pressing, you could pull it down a little bit more and hide it completely, but I do like to have a little bit of that rainbow showing just because it is the contrasting fabric. And I've done that with all the bags that I've made, whether it's like a leopard lining or the rainbow or something like that. It just adds a little bit of interest, especially because I don't top stitch. But you absolutely could top stitch. Again, there's so many ways that you can customize these bags and add like fringe to them or rickrack or anything like that. Wendy, you're making one. Yes, let me know if you have any feedback. I know I'm always open. If you're looking at the instructions or you have feedback, please, please, please let me know. I think we all get into our own head and do things the way we like to do it. And so it's always great to hear what other people are doing, see what other people are doing. So I am happy I found a way around the YouTube not being able to play music. So I'm playing licensed music, YouTube licensed music. So at least there's something on in the background. Do you ever walk into a store that doesn't have music? Well, okay, when was the last time I walked into a store? Well, I guess a thrift store, but I cannot stand it when I walk into a store and they don't have music on. It's just one of those crazy things. Okay, now the last step here is we are going to close, maybe I should turn this off here. We're going to close up this side and then we'll close up this side. Now I have been hand closing this little tiny side because I thought it was too small for my machine. But again, through trial and error, I figured out if I go slowly, I am able to do that. So it actually saves a little bit of time. And now what I'm doing, since we've already pressed these pieces, I'm just going to put them together like this, do the little sandwich right here, and then we're gonna go over to our machine and then we're gonna stitch all the way around. Another suggestion that I do have when it comes to the bag is, in this case, I'm using a black thread, so it's not really gonna be that noticeable when I close this off. But let's say you're doing, here, I'll show you an example. Okay, so if you're using like a lighter thread on a different color, if you are starting and stopping your thread, you're gonna, you know, do the back stitch and you're gonna be able to see that. So put that in a place that's not as noticeable. So if you have a front of your bag, start the stitch in the back of your bag and typically down near the bottom. I found that that's gonna be the best place to have that start and stop stitch. With this one, I actually do have a front because I've been adding my logos on here because, you know, I have them and I think it adds a little bit of fun to them. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to stitch all the way around. And again, I'm going to start in that spot. Let's see if I can get closer to the sewing machine. Here we go. And this is why pressing it prior to this is so convenient. And then as I'm pressing as I'm stitching this, I am just doing like 1/8. I mean, it's as close to the edge as possible. Now it is a little tricky because I have the fabric that wants to peek out as I stitch, so I'm just trying to poke it in there. Another little tip that I have with that is if you do end up with any thread sticking out or fabric sticking out, you can use fabric glue. That absolutely helps. Let me see here. Now here's another tip as I am doing this part. So let's say you're sewing and when your outer fabric is thicker than your lining fabric. So in this case, my outer fabric is, like I said, it's like an upholstery, like outdoor fabric. And then the inside is more of a stretchier cotton. It doesn't have any stretch to it. But it definitely expands more than this. So when I get to the sewing piece, I find myself sometimes with extra fabric. You can create a pleat and sew that, but one recommendation I have is at the top, this might be where you want to make your pleat. If you're going to be adding a loop to it, which is what I'm gonna do, putting the pleat up there means it's virtually going to be hidden when I add my loop. And if you're not sure what I mean by adding the loop, so this is not part of the pattern. This is just something that I've done extra. So on all the bags, I add a little loop here with the clip, and then this is gonna hide any of those imperfections. So if you had a little pleat, then it would be hidden right behind there. So that is a suggestion if you're looking to get a really clean finish.
Wendy wants to know where you got your logos.
Oh, those are from Wonder Label. So I ordered them from Wonder Label because they are They have really great reviews. The product was really wonderful. It came very quickly, and I think that someone else recommended it to me. I didn't have like a coupon or anything, not you know, sponsored or anything like that, but I have found them that they work really well. And they also have cleaning labels, drop labels. What else? I mean, pretty much anything that you can think of for clothing. They have 100% cotton. So wonderlabel.com. Let's get all these extra threads off of here. So all my extra. Wonderful. Okay, now I'm gonna press again before I do anything else, because I like to have that finished look before I go on to the next little thing. And then as I mentioned, so here's my little pleat because my fabric didn't quite fit, and it was easy to make a pleat. And then this is just where I'm going to stick the loop. So it'll virtually be hidden. You will never be able to tell. Also, one other thing, so this is a little, you know, one of those little secrets that we all have. When it comes to black fabric, sometimes, oh no. Okay, well, here's an issue. I'm gonna actually, what do you call that? Use my seam ripper. I'm gonna use my seam ripper here in a second because the thread didn't get totally tucked under there. But what I was pointing out was sometimes if you have black thread and if you're stitching, you might find that it turns white because some of the fibers come out. Yeah, I'm gonna use a black permanent marker right on there, and then I'm gonna cover that up with Fabric Fusion, so then I don't have to worry about any more fraying. But before I do that, I'm going to use my seam ripper because for some reason, this did not get pressed under enough. And that some reason is me. So mistakes are okay. And I'm gonna tell you that from a place of love. If you're working on something and you make an error and you have to go back, we all do it. It is 100% happens all the time, nothing to be stressed about. It doesn't feel good sometimes, but I promise everyone is doing it. What can help ease the pain sometimes is making your seam ripper pretty. Like I have my seam ripper is pink and sparkly. So that way when I use it, I feel like, okay, all right. It could be worse. I could be using just a plain boring seam ripper. So what I ended up doing, in fact, let me show you what I'm doing so you can see where my mistake is. When I press this, this side over here was pressed very minimally under. So then when I sewed these two together, I didn't quite catch the fabric. So I am gonna press it under again before I sew it, just to make sure it's all the way under this time. All right, come here. Let's get my little fabric pressed under. Don't burn myself. Okay, now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna stitch over that row of stitching just to kind of lock it in place. And we are going to pull that over a little bit more. Okay, that should be better. Oh my gosh, there's threads everywhere, always. I'm pretty sure I'm covered in threads. Okay, wonderful. Great. Now I'm gonna, just on these little white fibers right here, just because. Wonderful. White fibers. Okay. And then I am gonna add this fabric fusion. Actually, let me press this again and then I'll add it. Okay, everything got stitched in place. Yes, much better. Okay, let's get rid of those extra threads. Okay, excellent. All right, now we're gonna do the other side. As I mentioned, I had been, okay, and I'll show my face for a second. Hello, hello, I'm here. Oh my gosh, this thing is a little weird. So I have been doing everything hand stitched on the smaller one. So I was doing like a little slip stitch, which looks really great because it's hidden and it looks nice. However, I did on the other bag that I finished today realize that I could actually stitch this closed instead of taking all the time with hand stitching. So we are going to try that again, see if I can have some success with it. Before I do that, I'm gonna make sure to put my lid back on my fabric fusion. Don't want that drying out. I love, Wendy, you have a strong relationship with your seam ripper. Yes, I totally, I'm right there with you. Yes. Yeah, all these sharp objects scare you. Whatever. You got to use the sewing machine recently. You did a great job. Okay, I'm just getting this all in there so that I can make sure it's all together. All right, I'm gonna try something a little different this time. So when I first started doing this, I'm sitting here like scratching my nose. When I first started doing this bag, what I was doing is I was stitching it on the outside to close it, and then I didn't like the way that looked. So then I started stitching it on the inside. But now I'm realizing that I want to stitch it on the outside again. And by that I just mean here as opposed to in here. So we're gonna try it. We'll see if it's any easier because it is such a small opening. And I'm going to get this down here on the sewing machine. All right, and like I said before, I am gonna start down here at the bottom. Let's see if this is easier on the top or on the bottom. We don't know yet, we'll see. Oh, it's so tight. No, I think I already messed it up, to be honest. Hold on. I can't tell if I already stitched the side together or if I'm just, what am I doing? I mean, it is possible that it would be faster to hand stitch. That's for sure. Yeah, I feel like I'm stitching this together incorrectly, but we'll go together and we'll see. If you like hand stitching, I'd say go with hand stitching. I do love hand stitching. I love embroidery. I wish I was doing it more. I started my little embroidery journal at the beginning of the year, and I haven't done that much. I mean, I've done some, but I wish I had the energy to do a lot more. So the reason this takes so long is you have to pull the fabric, you have to tuck the fabric, making sure everything is tucked before you stitch, and you can only take tiny stitches at a time because it is so small. This is not a good time, by the way, to run out of bobbins. So, little PSA, every time you start a project, make sure you have enough bobbin for your project. Because can you imagine if I ran out of bobbin thread right now? Oh, I think that I would be a little frustrated. Where's my, oh, my sewing foot is getting a little wonky. Telling you, I think it would take me the same amount of time to hand stitch this. And then at least then I would know exactly what I'm doing. All right, let's see if I was able to actually do this correctly. It's like blind stitching is what it is. You can't see. Oh my goodness. I actually might be really impressed with this. Let me pull off all these extra threads and then I'll... Okay, let's turn this right side out and see how we did. Or wrong side out. I mean, it's pretty good. It's not perfect. I mean, it's pretty darn close though. All right, let's press this again. Nice little press. So yeah, we've almost finished this bag, and it really does not take that much time. And it's also taking me more time because I'm talking and stopping every once in a while. So think about that. Really quick project. All right, I'm pretty pleased with the way that turned out, even though it was very frustrating. So, all right, let's take a look at, here is our cute little finished bag. Finished right now. I'm gonna add another little step here. But this is the little wristlet style. There we go. I'm telling you, I'm making one of these for myself I'm actually making a matching one to this. So this is my little key fob that's gonna go on, or my ear pods case, it's gonna go on my bag. But I have to have one for myself now. I love them. Okay, our next step, now that we have completed this, is I am going to add my, what do you call that, loop. And I'm going to use the fabric that is on the inside. So that little fabric, that's this fabric there. And I'm going to add some interfacing to it just to give it a little thickness because I want the strap to have a little bit more heft to it. So I'm just using a lightweight interfacing. You can use whatever you have, and you don't even have to add it if you don't want to. All right, and then to make the loop, I do this this is old school simple way. I just fold in, I just eyeball it. So I fold in, and then fold in. And what I can tell right now is that this is going to be too big of a piece. I don't even measure these. This is all just based on feel. And then I'm going to fold that over. And I could use spaghetti strap style. I could use more of a hidden, you know, finish on this, but I don't actually mind the contrasting stitching. Okay, now that I have the loop, I'm actually going to go and I'm going to sew all the way across. I'm not going to sew the ends. It's not necessary because we are actually going to attach it like this and turn the ends under. So that's kind of an extra step and it's a waste of thread. So I don't do that piece here, but I am going to sew the loop as close to the edge as possible. Okay, so now we have our little loop-de-loop. Now before I do anything else, I want to make sure I have this. The other day I was making these and I kept forgetting to put the clasp on it. All right, and this is a new clasp. This is a different style than I've used, but we're gonna go with it. Okay, let's decide. I want that. So I want the stitches to be at the top. I just aesthetically, I think that is gonna work best for me. So then what that means is I need to fold this down like this, put the hook through, and then on our bag, I'm gonna come over here to the side that is the front, which remember I have a front because I have a label on there. You can decide whichever one you want to be the front. They're interchangeable, really. It just, because you're just gonna pull the long strap through. But in this case, I'm going to take this and I'm gonna pull, you know, pull it around. I don't wanna make it too tight because I do want it to just sit on the top, is like, you know, cute little contrast there. So I'm going to, but I do want it a little bit tight. And then I'm just gonna head over to the machine and I'm going to sew these two pieces together right here, as close to this fabric as possible without touching it, because then we can cut off the excess and it'll fit perfectly right there. And I do go over that like 3 or 4 times just because I want to make sure it doesn't come apart. I am going to stitch it on the bag as well. And then I'm going to cut off this extra. So getting as close as I can. Now that we've done that piece, what I do is I turn it under. Actually, I want to cut that little thread off. So I'm going to turn it under. So now, here we go. This piece is on the back, hidden, can't see that. And then that little pleat that I had made earlier is also hidden there. And then now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to top stitch here along with the seam, or along with the stitch line. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side just to secure it to the bag. Do the other side. little extra threads all over. Oh, there it is. I knew there was a big long thread hanging somewhere. Okay, so there we have it. There's the little loop-de-loop. Zoom out a little bit. So now we have our bag. This bag, again, this one was made for Kathy and Nora, and you have the little fun rainbow on the inside. This, you can put a lot of things on here. So let's say you made a little mini one. You made a little mini version that is going to be an iPod holder. You could hook that on there if you wanted to. Problem with that though is that in order to close the bag, you do need to pull it through here. So this works really well for maybe like a tassel or maybe some keys, something like that. Then you pull it right through, and there we go. You can also hook the, I mean, let's say you want to put this on like your belt loop or something. Why not? Easy. So it's one of those projects, you saw how fast it was. It took me, even with talking a lot and stopping and making errors and having to seam rip and restitch and, you know, taking a long way around, we still finished within, I guess it's a little over an hour now, but it is a really quick and easy project. Again, you don't need a pattern, but if you want a pattern, you can go find it on Etsy. It's actually in the description. Those of you that did buy the pattern that are here, thank you as well. I appreciate it. 10% of all of my Etsy earnings for the year is going to charity. So that is something I made recently decided that it's just going to happen. And so thank you so much for your support. And if you have any questions, let me know. But I think that that is going to do it for this little live. Hopefully it was, you know, you got something out of it. I taught you something. And it was really nice to have you join me on this wonderful Friday night. So I'm looking, because I have my the chat piece over here. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I will wrap it up. I appreciate you all. And yeah, until next time. See ya! See ya! See ya. I don't know how to shut off the live. Bye, everyone.